Good evening, everybody. Glad to have you, and happy holidays. I'm going to call this meeting of the Marvin Planning Board for December 21st, 2021 to order. I see that we have 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 7 members either here at Village Hall or online, so we do have a quorum.
You're just missing Kent Renner and our council liaison, Bob Margulies.
Who is in town.
He is back from Connecticut. He has
Yes.
returned.
Okay. He doesn't have to report to us.
That's right.
Yeah, technically. He has to be in the minutes, though.
Okay. Has everyone reviewed the agenda as presented? Any comments, questions, revisions?
None of the above for me.
Motion to adopt. Melinda.
Second.
Second, Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Ken?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on. Adoption of the minutes for the 11/16/21
I need to go get
meeting.
those for you.
Everybody reviewed those. Any comments on the minutes as presented?
No comments?
All right. Don't hear any here. Motion to adopt as presented.
I'll do it this time.
Sure.
Yeah,
Michael?
move quickly.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Second, Melinda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Moving on. Public comment period.
No public, no comment.
There's no one here at Village Hall, and no one other than board members online, so I guess there are no public comments. I'll close that, unless you have something in writing.
I do not.
Okay.
The public is quiet.
Okay. All right. Moving on. Items of discussion. Item number 1, perform the function of the Design Review Board to discuss and consider approval of the Marvin Eford Park monument sign.
Okay.
Can I start before? Do we have a picture of the actual monument sign?
No. It's let me rephrase that. It's already ordered and we already have it. I just don't know.
But we don't have. They didn't do a
That's not
drawing
what-
for us.
It's
So-
literally the exact same sign that's up there
I
at the
get it,
park.
but I mean, it's
Yeah,
hard
but
for you guys. It's hard for you to ask us to approve something when we don't see what.
Trust me, I've asked Derek multiple times and he seemed to
I
can't
mean, I
get
think
it.
that's an unfair ask.
Yeah, because I asked him the same thing. I said, "What is it?" And apparently, it looks like the same. It's just. I'll explain a little bit, but trust
I just
me.
want to ask.
Yeah.
Maybe you brought it to the meeting was what I was hopeful for.
No,
I don't even know where it is. I don't know if it's at the park thing stored or if it's in the
Oh, you
building.
mean it's
somewhere.
actually it's physically here?
It-
Or
They ordered it.
That's been
that's-
ordered months ago.
That's why I'll get into
Go
it.
ahead,
Hopefully,
sorry.
Yeah.
So basically, this is just hopefully a straightforward type of request. A little background before I started. Derek came to me about a few weeks ago. Apparently, this new sign's already been here. It was ordered, approved by Village Council. It's a 4x6. They had a Boy Scout that an Eagle Scout wanted to do an Eagle Scout project. Came up with this idea. Derek came to me, and I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! I need all this information because our sign ordinance is completely whack." But found a way, through the monument sign thing, which I highlighted, I think presented into your packet, that this is what this is considered as. So basically, it's a sign. I think, yeah, as Austin mentioned, it basically just says Marvin Eford Park. It's kind of the same design.
The only thing is the seal is raised in like a dome shape over the top of the one that's currently there. This is just a sign that's completely
Do you
rectangular.
know if we have a rendering of it from when it was approved by council?
That's all I'd like is a rendering.
Yeah, because I wasn't.
I mean,
There
how
was-
did you
there
guys-
was
how did
never-
you guys approve and pay for this without a rendering?
There was never a rendering. There was nothing that ever passed by my hands. It's something Derek handled when he ordered the sign. So
Yeah.
the PRG board came up with the design. I know they
That was my comments and that last one. It's even further along than I realized, seeing how it's
Exactly.
on site.
That's why this wasn't when we met. John Jones, we met last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess, before the pre-agenda meeting. This wasn't even on the agenda. This got thrown at me, and I was like, well, technically, it's got to go to DRB for approval, with it being a monument sign. I mean, basically the information I have is what I did present to you guys in the packet, that the goal is for it to look like this. So this will be the actual sign part. It's not going to be like mounted, cemented. It's going to be still wood, staked in, and then some type of gravel or plantings under it.
River Rock, I think is what they want.
Yeah, River Rock.
Something like that.
That's kind of the information I have. I talked to, like I said, Derek and I met about this last week. I didn't even know that he was going to be out of the office, and I wanted to get this on the agenda because apparently the Eagle Scout was trying to get started. But we're trying to make sure it, meets our ordinance standards, as well as, goes through that proper process. And with it being considered that monument sign, that's one requirement.
There's nothing in the ordinances or that a rendering has to be presented. You can approve it without a rendering. You can approve it without.
So technically, when it comes to the sign permit, yes, but once again, it's already been approved, and this was stuff that happened before I got here.
This was approved, gosh, probably. It could have been January this year.
By.
Council.
So if it's already approved by council, why are we backtracking and using the DRB now?
Because I don't think it went there. It didn't go through the proper
Yeah,
channels.
it didn't come through us.
Basically,
before.
I think he presented the sign and ordered the sign without actually having it go through what it needed to on our end.
Hey Hunter,
Yes.
what's the proper, like, what are the proper steps? What should have happened?
Basically, for any type of general sign permit, to have all information presented to me prior. Typically, that does consist of a rendering, a location of where that wants to be proposed. I had to ask Derek where he wanted to propose it because he was asking me where he can propose it. Based off our sign ordinance is completely just awful. If you read it, and we had this situation with the subdivision monument signs. If you read it, it says like the base height's like the maximum's like 2 feet. Like how is like none of that makes sense. Like, but in this case, it was that any type of ground mounted signs had to be a minimum of 30 feet back from the right of way line, meaning that Newtown Road's a 60-foot right of way. And 30 feet would have put it almost against the fence there going into Marvin Eford Park, and that just doesn't make sense if you really think about it. The safety is a concern in line of sight, but most of the time, I think what the intent of that ordinance was maybe, or what it really should have read was maybe 30 feet from center or something like that, where it would actually get it out of the right of way. But from the way that it reads with the right of way line, that's the line that's established that's outside of the right of way and then becomes actual property that's usable. So
what if in the case that we would disapprove it, what happens? Nothing really.
I couldn't tell you. I
Well,
mean,
I feel like if council's made a decision though,
Yeah.
our discussion on it's arbitrary.
well,
Pragmatically
that, and
speaking,
according to what Derek told me is that Rohit gave Derek the
Well,
sign information prior.
And I appreciate that regardless, like right, but like if it really doesn't make any difference, then
We're setting ourselves up. We're asking to approve something, and then somebody's going to come in here and look at this and say, "Well, the council,
Well, they approved the purchasing of the sign. That's different. It's not like they approved the locate, like as in they approved the purchase.
I think I can clear a little bit of this up. At the time, the initial thought process was that the sign is virtually identical to the current sign, other than the placement of the village seal on the sign. So we went from a rectangular shape with a dome on top just to a pure rectangular shape. And I think what Rohit meant at the time was that since that sign had been approved, that it wouldn't have to get reapproval. Since then, the discussion moved from simply moving the sign off the fence to now having this frame built around the sign in a more prominent location, further away from its original intended location. And so that's why I think that we had to come through this step, because the location of the sign is what changed.
got it. So we're not approving the sign, we're approving the location of the sign.
That's my understanding, just because the design is virtually identical to what was.
Design review. We're not approving the location. We're the design review committee.
I know, but that's what the ordinance states. Trust me, like I said, it basically.
The last sign I think was approved probably in 2011, whenever we established the park. So
Yeah,
it's been forever.
because this is basically a landmark sign. It states that the sign shall be approved by the design review authorities as a landmark sign. And so pretty much I believe that's kind of what it's being.
Where does it say we have to approve the location? I'm missing that.
It's, I guess because it says one, I guess we're looking at sign criteria and looking at 1, 2, and 3, which I don't have 3. I don't know if it's going to be illuminated.
That's what I'm looking
Right.
at.
Yeah. None of that, like I said, all this
It
is thrown
actually
at
shows
me.
a rendering in the sign permits.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So one, where it says it shall be designated for an institution, historical establishment, government agency recognized, that's checked off because it's for the Village of Marvin, has the seal. 2, it shall bear that emblem and so on, that's checked off. I don't have any lighting information. I don't even know if we've gotten that far.
There's been no discussion of lighting, and if there was discussion of lighting that happens in the future, that would have to come back here.
Yeah. This would then just be for the actual design of it, which would be that the example is this picture.
I don't think they probably will do lighting because we don't light the current sign and the park closes at dusk. So why would you need light for a sign?
Just for pride, advertisement, show we have a park, things like that. I mean,
Yeah.
But who knows?
Well, and don't we have night events there sometimes?
yeah, we
Very
do.
rarely, but
Okay.
Lighting of the Christmas tree.
So then if we're approving
What was
the
daylight when it
placement of
started?
it, we're looking at 41.45 feet off of the main road up against the fence? Or where is the actual placement of it that we are looking, because you said that was, they would actually
Yeah,
rather put it somewhere
honestly,
else?
Yeah, that-
That's
and-
page 10.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the other
What I'm
question
showing
is-
in this is that from the right-of-way line to the fence is 41.45 feet, roughly. That's not survey grade, that's based off of GIS. Meaning that if I would have included our whole sign ordinance sections and you read other parts, none of it makes sense other than considering it a landmark sign.
But attaching these pencil sketch drawings.
Is that where they want to put it?
Yeah, I was gonna
Is that what
say,
that is?
That little
Yes.
black spot is where they want to put it.
Approximately, I'd imagine, right?
Correct.
So that means they're wanting to put it, let's say 20 feet from the right of way. Is that right?
Yeah. Somewhere, I didn't want to see, like I said, this whole.
Or is that what that 23
I'll bring it
means?
back to
23 feet from the right of way?
What's the rush?
Not very-
What's the rush here?
What's the rush?
Yeah.
we have an Eagle Scout ready to go.
We haven't, yeah.
How long have we known the Eagle Scout's ready to go?
What, about a month, if that?
Couldn't tell you.
These are people who need of hours, and we.
I know what it is, yeah. But Eagle Scouts have to follow rules too.
The problem really goes back to what you said. If we just and then someone else comes in here, well, you did that for the village.
Oh, then you know what we end up with? The same thing where we have hardships that are pre-existing water features and properties. Because at one point, with the neighborhood, right? Because I was sitting in here one day arguing whether or not a water feature was a hardship, right? With the water that the new neighborhood that's going on off of Joe Kerr, and they wanted to change the setbacks.
Water feature.
Yeah, there's a creek.
Oh, you mean the
didn't
FEMA
add in
floodplain?
there. Yeah, no, not the floodplain, the actual creek. And so then the water was considered a hardship, so we approved the setback.
Well,
because we had done it previously.
It was a pre-vitalizing field.
Right, but this is the same thing, where then if we stamp off on it without seeing it, right, we're setting a crazy precedent for going forward.
And the look and feel of it is changing because they're adding a frame to it. And all that it says is that they're gonna paint it brown.
No, they're relocating it too. Right now it's on the fence, or against the fence, is that right? I don't even remember.
Right now it's against the fence, like I said.
Right now it's mounted on the fence.
Yeah, parallel to the
I'm doing
road.
the best I can with what was given to me.
No,
I understand. We're not blaming it.
No, this isn't on you, but I think you should tell them we need the more information and a picture of the actual sign.
This is a little sloppy present. I mean, and it's not yours, but we have pencil sketches on this. I mean,
like I said, I think if we're doing it for ourselves,
and we are. And that's why I think we need to hold ourselves to a little higher standard.
Yeah.
Right, we need to be very consistent.
I mean, like I said, if we just say, oh, it's fine, then the next guy that comes along is going to say, well, you said it was fine.
Can we move to table it and get better information, or what's the process?
Okay. Tabling, yes, you have the right to table down whatever you want.
Or does it have to have our approval?
It doesn't.
I mean, I'm just asking that.
Does it make a difference?
That's okay.
Yeah.
This gets back, yeah, this is where it gets into that whole design review board and the legality and certain things of it too. This will tie into our item 4 on the agenda of what's next, but that's the reason I put it on here was one, because I caught that number 4 in the landmark thing that said must be approved by DRB. Now, even in the DRB language about certain things like this, I don't think there was anything that gave any type of direction on what you guys were looking at other than the design. And then with that being said, the only design information I have at this point is that it's, as Austin stated, of what the difference looks like. I don't even know, I know this was discussed during the PRG meeting 2 weeks ago. It was decided not to do like I said, the concrete slab and kind of actually in. It's going to be in the ground and kind of put river rock and other stuff around it. I don't know the color scheme of the brackets.
I mean, they could have, at least, if they've got the sign, they could have at least taken a picture of it. And
right there in the ordinance is literally a rendering.
Like I said, I have requested, because I asked Derek, I was like, what size, I didn't get the size of the sign until last week.
Well, like I said, let me go back to that basic question. Like everything else that, I hate to say it, everything else that we approve or disapprove, council doesn't have to agree with us.
That's right.
And now we're operating as design review board here. Is that different? I mean, if we say no.
If you say no, council can either affirm or can they, I don't know.
You have to look at the ordinance, but the thing is, the ordinance is not legal as it's written. So the whole ordinance is a legal quagmire that we're going to have to rewrite anyway.
Well,
it's a pain.
Dealing with what we've got now.
Yeah. What's your recommendation?
My recommendation is, if you guys definitely don't feel comfortable with, valid concerns there, would be to table it till, I would say table it.
Table with recommendations on what we expect.
Yeah.
Well, that. And then also part of that motion is that
you don't need to make a motion and include what you want changed. We can communicate that as staff.
We can table it, and then from a staff standpoint, we'll verify the legal, like what one all you guys have to approve to, or even if there's another avenue where this doesn't quote unquote be defined as a landmark sign. And
I just think as a design review committee, the integrity of the committee has to, just because this is just, we would look at anybody else who brought this in and said, really?
Yeah. I got this,
and I think we do the same here.
You're in the middle, and we understand that.
Right,
we're not fussing at you.
Yeah.
Oh no,
you're just a messenger here.
Yeah. Like I said, this dates back to probably the end of November.
Right.
Okay.
And
so I will make a motion then that we table this
until a revised package is submitted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Call me Shakespeare.
I'll second it if you need it.
And please include a
recommendation. Right. All in favor?
Can we put in there, we would request a rendering?
We can communicate the details of staff. You don't need that in the actual motion.
All right, very good.
All right.
What was say it again, what was yours?
I made a motion, and Austin had it written, and so I agreed with what he said.
Oh, can you read it back, please?
There's a motion to just table the discussion until a revised package is submitted.
Perfect. That's good. Thank you. So we seconded it, now we vote?
Oh, I thought we voted.
Oh, we did.
Yeah, we voted, yeah.
So
you missed.
Yeah, I was asking questions, I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
All right.
It's here already.
Move it. Discussion, consider recommendation for the estates at Marvin Branch.
This is the neighborhood.
Preliminary plat and construction plans. This is Joe Carr Road.
This is the neighborhood that had the variance for hardship.
It's not a variance.
What was it?
They got a reduction in their view shed buffer, which was written into our ordinance. It's something they can request and the council can agree to.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's because the neighborhood across the street had already gotten the same 85-foot reduction. Because
that was
of the
their
hardship.
argument, but as also mentioned, it wasn't a variance, but actually in any type of variance, there's no precedent set. You're supposed to look at it case by case.
You are, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and same thing, yeah.
It's not what we discussed in our
Well,
meeting.
because that wasn't a variance.
That's not a variance. This is not a variance.
That was approving
When
a
we were
reduction in the view shed.
when-
Yes, that because the one across the street, that if we didn't approve that
Well-
one, that it opened us up
Well,
to.
first off, we don't deal in variances.
No, that's the
Okay,
Board of
I'm sorry.
Adjustment.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I used the wrong word, I do
Yeah.
apologize.
When
It was a
Reduction.
requested reduction based on the hardship, which was because of the water feature, AKA the creek that was there, and the people across the street had it because
they both,
I'm just trying to understand, because I think that this is going to play into all kinds of things as we go forward.
I disagree because just because that when council had this discussion, they made that decision to grant that view shed buffer reduction. They
The first
specific
one?
not for Elysian Fields, for this subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
They made a point when they granted it in the motion that this does not set a precedent, that this is a case by case basis. That this was a lengthy part of the discussion.
Okay.
They are not setting up a precedent. They purposely had that discussion in open session.
Yeah, the stuff like that, and
But we talk about it in our, we talk about Elysian Fields in
We did.
Yeah.
in the history.
And they did too.
background
That
you
was-
did. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we were
try,
encouraged because of that.
slide. When I was when I took this job, I listened to planning board minutes and council minutes. I think this was the discussion that I was listening to. And
This
it
is
was
a
like-
rabbit hole.
I was like, "What is going on?" It was
How long ago was Elysian Fields approved? I mean, it's-
2014,
Yeah.
something like that.
Well, and I realize this one's done, but I was just trying to figure, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
anyway.
Correct.
Okay, it is what it is.
So
But I mean, can I jump in here? I'm sorry. What Melinda makes a good point though, because there are still large tracts of land in Marvin that are yet to be developed that have unusable land because it's either swamp or 100 Plains flood, whatever the issue is. So, and we talked about this a little bit when we were determining the Heritage District boundaries. How do you, when we're talking about by right usage, we use the entire, do you use the entire, acreage, or do you use only the usable land?
I think that's not in our ordinance.
for what what's the like
When considering
the view shed buffer reduction?
when considering proposals, you don't consider just usable land. You consider the entire tract, the entire tract.
The total tract acreage. So in any type of proposal, if it's a 50-acre tract, I mean, even for the heritage one, if it's 50 acres, even though if 10-15 is unusable and they do the conservation, that's just part of it. You only consider the parent tract or the total acreage.
Okay, so then conservation then is not necessarily need to be usable land.
Correct.
It's just untouched, so it can be swamp.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, but it will be a different situation in the Heritage District because portions need to be set aside for public use, and that the only way that you could make swamp land usable is if you put some sort of walkway over it or through it or something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, like I said, don't want to get off topic, but with the Heritage District, there's a lot of different, there was that percentage of open space, which some of that could be used as the natural, or part of that percentage could be used for the stormwater detention facilities, the view shed buffer, the tree preservation areas, which yes, those can be unusable, but then they had to have a certain amount of percentage open for public and open recreational opportunities. Meaning that if it's 30% open space and 20% of that is unusable, then that 20% can be used as that, as long as they still meet the other requirements for the recreation and public use part of that.
Well, on this, I'm reading the view shed, and the council approved the requested exemption to reduce the view shed buffer to 85 on the east side of the main cul-de-sac. From 85 from what?
285.
285.
Okay.
The the way our ordinance reads with that is 285 is the maximum, and there's a formula in there that is based off of acreage and so on, and if it's over whatever that formula is, if it exceeds 285, then the view shed's 285.
Oh,
And I think this one was right. I think this one technically by the ordinance's formula was supposed to be like 312. I mean, especially even when we get into the heritage one, that one was supposed to be like 420. It was something the same. But so the maximum is 285 allowed. So
walk us through to the 285 to 85 is on the east side of the property. I'm
Yes.
trying to figure out.
That's the Marvin School Road side. Yeah, that would be east because there's the north arrow.
Is it this one?
That's 285.
And
That's
that's the one that's reduced. Okay, that's what I'm asking. Okay, so normally, so what they're getting by reduction is 1, 2, 3 additional homes. Correct?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm
Yes.
seeing. So here's 285 here. If approximately if 285 was there, it would be down to about there.
It's 2 homes. They could reconfigure to
Okay.
get that extra home.
So okay.
yeah,
So they get, and that's on the Joe Carr side. Okay.
yeah.
So,
So
Hunter, would you mind sharing your
Yeah.
screen for this discussion?
yeah. I don't know, maybe I'll put you-
For those of us, just filling out at home.
I mean, we haven't even really
Thank
gotten
you.
into anything yet. So.
Yeah, we really haven't gotten into the plans yet. This has mostly just been board questions.
Oh my goodness, I hate to do this.
Oh Lord, what'd you do?
Nothing, we're good. I just can't get this thing to move. There we go. Did you guys go blank? Can you still see my screen?
Yes.
You can still, okay.
Can you see the plans?
You see the plans?
That's the wrong plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you got the heritage
Joe
plans.
Carr. This is on my left.
That's the heritage plans you gave me on. Yeah.
Right past the Yamas.
Yes.
They aren't there anymore.
I actually went to this PIM. I was on
Yeah,
site,
you wouldn't walk through, I remember you saying that.
I don't see a problem.
Okay. That being said, so Jones Homes has submitted their preliminary plat and construction plans for approval. Once again, this was reviewed, the preliminary, or the sketch plan was reviewed by you guys earlier this year and then approved by council back in, what, July? Is that what I said, or June?
Somewhere around there.
So the next step in the process was for them to get their preliminary plat and construction documents for review. That has been reviewed and recommended to council by the planning board, and then there will be a public hearing for consideration for these documents in the preliminary plat. The sketch plan follows the preliminary drawings of the lot design, that 85-foot view shed, the reduction to the view shed of 85 feet, all was approved by council during the sketch plan. Follows all of that, so then getting into the construction documents of the actual development, that's kind of what is the greater detail here. This has already actually been reviewed by our engineer, instead of us actually, I guess, with the last one when I first started, we voted on it contingent upon the engineer review. The engineer, there was only one concern, and it had to do with the stormwater flows and the impervious being under 24% and stuff. Basically, there was discussion prior, I think when actually the sketch plan was approved, that the engineer actually signed off on, that it doesn't meet those requirements, but when he was reviewing it, I guess that note wasn't in there, so when he was doing the hydro analysis, some concerns came back. However, that's the only thing. Everything else has been reviewed and approved by the engineer. The only thing is with that stormwater, and I think I actually submitted those comments with these packets.
I think you did put them in there.
And that was then given back to the to Jones Homes. They then submitted their justification and reasoning to the engineer, and waiting on that back from the engineer. Is there any specific questions on this? Because it's already been reviewed by staff and the engineer. Everything's compliant, like I said, outside of that stormwater part.
I've got one just trying to understand the plans. Find the right one.
Tell me what page.
I'm hunting it, yeah. Okay, it's their sheet C 3.2.
Yeah, Nestor, could you, where it says combined files, there's like a right arrow. Could you click on that? This would get rid of that column that says like for each 7-day trial. There's a right arrow.
It's just,
Click
right
on
there.
that.
Yep.
A little bit further down by combined, yes. Click there and that'll get rid of that column there.
It's not working.
Make it a
Hold
little
on,
bit
there it is.
larger.
There it goes.
There it goes.
Problem is then I don't know where to put them.
Just put them in the top right corner. Yep. That's fine, just leave it there.
What did you say, C3.2?
C3.2?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What are those boxes, or is that
Hash
the,
lines.
well,
Where?
Right, where?
yeah, do you call them hash lines or whatever?
The hash lines, those
Is
are
that
the,
existing drainage or what?
That should
I
be-
couldn't find
be-
it
That should be
in
in the
the,
key.
yeah, that's
legend.
the proposed.
Storm sewer, I think.
Yeah,
It's a
proposed storm
sewer.
sewer infrastructure. So basically, it would
Yes,
go in those catch basins and so on, and that's where, flow,
I'm
go
talking
through
about
into the stormwater
Yeah,
infrastructure.
this stuff.
Yeah, look, that's the legend. See, storms.
So those
Yeah,
are,
but it
that's,
doesn't show none. Easier.
You're talking these, John, right? These big things.
Those big things.
Yeah.
yeah,
What is, yeah. This.
so,
That's good fudge.
Yeah.
Because, you know, goes under houses and, or lots and stuff.
That's what it looks like.
It's just for me.
it's probably actually the existing contour,
See, it doesn't show on,
no.
The key's probably on, the full key's probably on another page.
Yeah, I went back to the overall one, it still says the same thing. I couldn't tell you.
I have to scroll up. Hold on.
I'll go down.
maybe it has something to do with their analysis or,
Well, which one is storm sewer then? That's not storm.
Let me
Yeah.
pull. Let me go back. Hold myself to
Why can I not?
No, I know, you don't think that's storm sewer.
Yeah, how could it be storm sewer? Because the storm sewer runs into Mecklenburg. It's set on the,
yeah.
under,
But see if we load that up. It looks like that, but
anything like.
see.
so the storm sewer wouldn't be coming from that way.
Is that? Could that be? I don't know. Could that be drainage or something? I don't really know. That's interesting.
I'm not sure whether it has anything to do with our approval, but I'm just, you know,
I'm looking for
curiosity.
When you click on it, it's more.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. Like I said, that's something, I mean, during,
World War II.
yeah, during my review, I mean, that's nothing that I kind of,
Yeah.
but,
Now we're curious, John.
hold on. I might know. Go back to the, okay, I hate computers. Let me go back to this for everybody. Let me look right here. Where's the top sheet?
Because this is, the next page, 4.0 is different. That's ditch lines there, I think. Or swales.
C3.2 is storm drainage plan.
Yeah, I mean, it's the overall storm drainage plan. That could just be, that,
C33 is storm drainage profiles.
what that probably is potentially the natural flow.
Yeah, that's why I was assuming that was maybe the natural flows off of, you know, coming down through there, that they
Yeah.
got to sort of reroute.
Yeah, that's my best guess. Existing, I mean,
It could just be marked on here weird where it's not consistent with the legend. I don't really know.
Anyway,
Say, well, let's just, I mean,
yeah,
just
I
for
don't,
future, if you could find out.
I don't think it affects,
No,
I don't think it does.
now I'd like to know.
No, I mean, that would be a question for the engineer.
Right.
yeah, he probably says, oh, that symbol means this.
Yeah, that could be something, yeah, straightforward.
Mason Greenson.
But my bet would be potentially that's the existing,
That's where I was
because
guessing.
when you actually get into the plant, I mean, I bet that's kind of probably the existing, like
Drainage
swells of
way.
flow, yeah. But, so this proposed, like I said, can kind of
Well, yeah, and other than the engineering part of it, the plan, I guess, is what we approved previously,
yeah, this
the
plan.
sketch plan.
Yep.
No changes?
No changes. I mean, I know, I guess, per that discussion, I guess, did you guys make the recommendation not to approve that view shed buffer?
They made the, I can pull those minutes.
No, it got moved to approve, but I voted against it.
Okay.
But I was the only one who voted against it.
Then that's probably, yeah, I mean, that sketch plan, the preliminary plat is the same as the sketch plan. Basically what these construction plans get into is the actual engineering part of the infrastructure.
And you said our engineers
Our engineers already reviewed it, and like the stormwater drainage, per those notes, and I can pull up some of these emails, but basically was the hydro analysis was the engineer's concern, and because it wasn't fully compliant. However, I think he was running the hydro analysis based off of different numbers, like numbers that would require the stormwater detention and stuff. With that being said, the information been provided, there's emails that go back to Rohit and our engineer and the developers that I guess Mike, our engineer, forgot, went back, gave that information to his hydro analysis team, and that's the only thing we're waiting on approval from. So, that's kind of, that's the,
It says project boundary points to that.
what you're
Well, I
going to do.
think that's that property line, not
Yeah,
that,
it's just over the top of it.
yeah.
So yeah, just once again, an overview of this is that it's, Jesus, my notes are all messed up now.
My stack's here, that's yours.
This is mine, right?
Yeah, that's all yours.
Sorry, getting into the states. So the parent tract was 28.48 acres. The proposal is for, I'm still missing something. For the 16 homes on that, which the density yields 0.56 units per acre. There's a 37% conservation area in this proposal. Once again, I think our minimum is 20, it's either 30, I think it's 30%. So all of that's compliant and or goes above those standards. All the setbacks for the lots comply with our standards. And like I said, from a planning and zoning standpoint, everything's compliant. And was submitted to the engineer for review. And like I said, those I provided his comments. Those were submitted to the developer, and that would is currently being worked out between, I guess, the developer and our engineer. And so staff's recommendation is to approve this contingent upon getting that.
Recommend approval.
Recommend approval contingent upon the successful final engineer reviewing.
No other comments, we can go with.
Yeah. A motion that says that.
You can say so moved if you agree with that.
All right, so move. Do we need a second?
You do.
All right,
I will
Michael.
second it.
Michael.
This.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Oh,
moving on. Unanimous.
Yeah, and I'll mention this part of the process is kind of, there's not much, because it's already been approved in the sketch plan, and then they have legal right investing with that sketch plan approval. And so coming back with you guys, like I said, outside of certain, like if it had like other kind of aspects to it, maybe that was like greenway, like other portions of it that we can actually dive into more review. But for this, it was kind of just straightforward, followed the sketch plan, and this was just more of the engineering design part of it that's needed per our design or engineer standards and ordinance.
In other municipalities, does this go to planning board or is this administrative?
The preliminary plat, most of the time sketch plan, your Marvin's sketch plan process is basically the preliminary plat process for a lot of other municipalities. Most sketch plans are literally like, hey, a developer will come in and draw something on a paper or maybe present like just a rendering.
Sort of like a sign application that we had earlier.
Basically like what the first page of the sketch plan where it shows the lot design and the configuration is typically what's only considered at the sketch plan, and most of that's always administratively approved. Then the applicant would go and get that preliminary plat approved by the necessary boards. But since the sketch plan already gets approved by you guys, like it's kind of this middle step is straightforward. I mean, really the sketch plan process should be potentially administrative, and then you guys actually dive into more of the preliminary stuff of it. Because once the sketch plan is approved, there's, like I said, they kind of have that vesting that this plan's approved and it's moving forward as long as it's compliant with all our with the engineer. So, moving on.
Discussion and consider recommendation of the Heritage at Marvin Subdivision sketch plan.
Okay, so this one is a sketch plan, so we can kind of get into discussion of it. I will mention that this is the first step. I'm not looking for any type of recommendation from planning board tonight, and this is due because the process for the sketch plan is that they meet with the staff, submit the sketch plan, the staff review / they also, during that time of review, they're supposed to hold that PIN meeting. They have a PIN meeting scheduled for January 12th. 11th. Thank you for that. So until that PIN meeting occurs, then technically you guys don't have to make a recommendation on it. No, it's the 12th.
Is it the 12th?
Yeah, because the 11th is the council meeting.
Yeah, 11th is council.
This will be, I guess, be going back to you guys during the January planning board meeting for consideration, or to make a recommendation. The sketch plans at the Odell Previs property, it's a by right conservation subdivision based off of our current ordinance. It is, I gotta find my notes. I'm so disorganized. So it's a total of the parent tract is 47.15 acres. I'll get into pull this up.
You need to get rid of that arrow again.
Why does
It's
No, actually, I'm looking at it, not for me. Kelly would need it, but I'm looking at the hard copy on my computer.
Okay.
It's literally 1 pixel.
You had it. There it is. Oh. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So it's for, the proposal is for 29 lots, which yields about 0.61 dwelling units per acre, which is I think our maximum standard is 0.83 for the conservation subdivision. 14.6 of the total acreage is for conservation, which this complies with our ordinance.
You said 14.6?
14.86. Which I think, once again, based off the percentage, it's on the sketch plan. But it's also, I mean, I checked the ordinance, obviously. Oh yeah, but it's 15%. And so that yields about 31.55% of the property for conservation land. Basically, for that conservation land, like I said, it can include that 285-foot view shed buffer along Newtown Road and the tree preservation area. All the lots are compliant with our standards. There's 3 lots, which I have marked on this one. There's 3 lots that are below that 30,000, which we allow, I think it's like 30%, which 30,000 is roughly 3/4 of an acre, just to give you guys some perspective there. The average lot size for this is 37,788 square feet, which is 0.87 acres. So it is like below that acre density, but that's what that conservation subdivision provides, is it allows for smaller lots to yield higher conservation areas. the density overall is still the same, if not below the, just like by right, 1 house per acre that our ordinance calls for. I'm trying to think, I can't remember if I scanned in my notes for you guys. But basically everything's been reviewed. Once it goes to the PIM, like I said, it's this kind of a holding pattern. I wanted to go ahead and get it in front of you guys, see what all questions, comments you guys had that I can either relay back to the developer or, you know, let them know prior to, you know, formal consideration in January. Once that PIM meeting is held, that the applicant can, if they choose, decide to amend this submittal based off the comments and information received during that PIM meeting, basically meaning that certain things can be brought to their attention, or if, you know, somebody has a suggestion of agreement and they want to take that stuff into consideration, then they can amend their plan. If they do so, then potentially then this will be brought back to you guys in February.
Do they have any intention, does anything change now if the Marvin Heritage District goes forward? Are they interested in taking advantage of some of the things that would then get put into place if that changes?
Well, I've had conversations with them. I'm not 100% sure. Basically, they have an option with the owners of Odell and Priebus, in that their closing date is sometime later this year. For part of their contingent, part of their closing date would be to receive approval. I mean, they have to have approval because they're not going to close on a property and not be able to develop it.
Sure.
So
if they change, but they could always come back and ask to change it based on, before they start, right? They could come back and say, okay, well, based on the fact that the Marvin Heritage District has been approved, and that changes the potential for this piece of property, right? Like then
the sketch plan. So if the sketch plan gets approved by council, this current one by right, then there's that year vesting and so on. I'm not 100% sure on the legality of then amending the plan. I honestly don't know that, because it was a question of mine. In my opinion, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to apply. It's just that they could, you know, that Heritage District process is going to be one that, you know, it's supposed to be making sure all the information is presented. So there's a lot of time that they're going to need as an applicant to make sure they have all the proper submittal requirements before even submitting and being considered. So that adds time to their plate. So if this is approved, they close and then want to go that route, well, that's something as now property owners or however they want to consider, that's something that they have to weigh on their own. That I can't force them.
No, I understand. I was just curious what that process would look like if they so chose to.
Yeah, I mean, once if the Heritage District's approved, then that legally allows them to apply for that rezoning. And part of that process would be to have a detailed site plan, development agreement, and all this other stuff. Basically, they would have all this stuff for their specific Heritage District submittal. And then that would go through the process.
Mr. Odell previously went through this process on his standalone parcel.
The Woodlands.
Yeah, so is that just, this takes the place of, or is
that one got approved though in like 2015, didn't it?
They have what, a year limit or something like that? That's expired.
It's a year of vesting, meaning like that's what it is, but it's like they would have, they would have to come back because that was only the sketch plan. So I mean, like,
so they would have had to come back with.
They would have had to come back and get reapplied or reapproved.
You know,
if
the branch at Marvin branch.
If the preliminary plat and construction plans and then even the final plat gets approved, then they are held to that standard. So meaning, like Broadmoor, I mean, yeah, even like with the estates moving forward, like all of those, like if the development fell through or something like that, then whoever then purchased that property has to follow those plans for that development. A sketch plan is just kind of an early vesting type thing where if it falls through or something happens, then it just reverts back to the original.
Okay, so it's null and void now because of time.
Correct.
All right, I was just wondering.
So is there any questions? Like I've got notes and stuff, and I do have a staff report, but once again, since there's no formal recommendation tonight, I mean, unless you guys wanted to, but it wasn't my recommendation for that. I just wanted to get this in front of you guys. Wanted to go ahead and discuss it and, you know, just see what all, so we can be
So
prepared. 'Cause this is my first submittal from the start that for the village. So I'm learning the process and what you guys want to see and know, so I can make sure, you know, anything moving forward we have that.
So technically, they can't even request our approval for this until they have the PIM.
You could, the board could go ahead and recommend approval and basically say contingent upon that nothing is submitted or came out from the PIM. But I would just recommend just waiting till after the PIM because.
And then they'll come back again.
Yeah.
You'll know what you have as the final proposal.
Okay,
Yeah,
so there's
correct.
no need in voting now.
Correct.
When they're gonna be coming back anyway.
Correct.
What you're saying.
Yeah, because the first step, according to our ordinance, they have to have that PIM meeting. And part of their technical package submittal is those PIM meeting minutes and like summary of the PIM meetings that gets packaged in for you guys to review. So that's also, it's in a way it's not fully complete, but that's what I'm saying. It's not going to be voted on tonight. I just wanted to go ahead and get it in front of you.
Is everyone fine with that?
Say it again.
With holding a recommendation till.
I see a couple of pump stations that are proposed inside this. Why is there a need for pump stations for 29 homes?
Sewer.
It won't perk.
It won't, the property won't perk, so the developer would be putting in water and sewer.
Okay.
So the pump station is based off the topography. The developer would have to put in a pump station to then pump it back up to Newtown Road and for it to then naturally gravity flow down Marvin Road.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And only one entrance? Fire department's okay with
So
that?
no, they're gonna have to run it in.
Yeah.
That is, like I said, this hasn't went to any other outside agency approval, just because it's not necessarily in that step of the process. The sketch plan itself, our ordinance does not call for outside agency approvals unless it, I mean, like I said, because the sketch plan is supposed to be just a generic sketch plan. It's not,
Right.
our ordinance goes way above and beyond, and there's some pros and cons to that. Because of the way it works is that, like I said, during the actual approval, like the preliminary plat and those construction documents, those would be the ones that are reviewed by outside agencies. But some of that's out of our jurisdiction, where unless the those outside agencies had comments that the applicant had to revise that significantly altered the site plan or something, then it wouldn't necessarily come back to the planning board, or I mean really the village for approval. Meaning, like, if there was, for some reason, the fire department requested another entrance, then that would be something, because that is a significant change, because they would have to reconfigure their whole site plan at that point.
I mean, it's small development to begin with, so, okay.
I also
can't see
think, Rich, it's an NCDOT thing with Newtown Road. Like, I think historically, I believe that NCDOT is like, you can only have one entrance.
Yeah.
Approved off of Newtown.
DOT is they want to limit any type of ingress egress for a development like along those major thoroughfares, because they would rather funnel it all to one point and make that a headache instead of having two where, you know, it either becomes a safety concern or cut through. I mean, just certain aspects of that.
Sure. I see it now, yeah. So she comes here. I saw it on the
Okay.
aerial. So this is just, hey, this is a first look. Here's what he gave us. If there's anything glaring that we see, bring it up now, but you didn't see anything glaring.
No, in my comments, basically, there was a few minor changes. Part of that is that back in July, like with the 160D changes, we used to define it as like large tract, small tract. It's major, minor. Part of a major subdivision is then conservation.
All that language was changed.
So all that language was changed, and so some of the stuff, as in just wording, on the submittal is not, I would say, compliant or consistent.
It's just not up to date with what we currently use.
So that was a lot of the stuff that was in my comments. They have submitted their application and fee. And another thing that I have to get some clarification on, and once again, this should be part of the preliminary, in my opinion, is our ordinance calls for the maintenance planning agreement of the conservation / open space areas. that is another thing that the applicant has to submit before January, or I guess before. I mean, I guess you guys could make a recommendation.
But you're saying the applicant still has to hold a PIM,
Yep.
after which the resulting comments and final version of the plan will be brought back to this board if revisions are made.
When I say if, it's basically like it's still coming back to you guys. That's if
We're
you
gonna
guys
see this again.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can't. There's nothing that they can do that it won't come back.
Correct. The only way that was, and that's what I was explaining, is I said, it's on here tonight if you guys wanted to make a recommendation, but that is not my,
I don't see.
that
I don't see a
it's,
reason to do
Yeah.
that.
it just
before
started the
plan.
process, getting it in front of you guys, and so that's why I put if any major changes are made, because there's,
I don't see a reason, do you?
no, and I, like I said, I didn't intend on it either. I mean, it was to get it in front of you guys, discuss it, kind of start the process, because that PIM meeting is the first step of the requirement.
Hey Hunter,
Uh-huh.
are they paying to pull water and sewer across the new roundabout?
Sewers.
Or is it accessible already on Newtown?
Sewer is coming across as part of the roundabout project. There's a lot of moving parts here, so I don't want to like confuse you. The sewer is being moved across as part of the construction due to TJ's property losing the septic lines and stuff with the right-of-way requirements. So they legally have to pull sewer across. Water is not currently a part of that, and the developer is working with DOT to the developer would pay to have the water line extended, and it's to go ahead and actually have the line extended with the roundabout being constructed, because that's the safest, cleanest way to do it. If the roundabout for whatever reason gets delayed even further, then the developer just has to get encroachment agreements with DOT as well as Union County to just either bore the line under, or they can do a pressurized like force main type thing to actually just they could do that route with the pressurized force main, where it would basically just allow access to their property. If the water gets across the property, water and sewer, this actually answers some of your question. The developer has to run then water and sewer from the roundabout all the way down Newtown Road to the entrance. So then it would provide water and sewer access to all those properties along Newtown.
Oh, so they're not going.
He's not going down.
Wouldn't be going through the back door.
No,
It'd have
correct.
to come all the way around.
Yeah, I'm glad you kind of brought that up. So water and sewer right now ends right here. Sewer is being brought across for sure as part of the DOT roundabout project. Water, the developer is trying to, like I said, work that out with with DOT. But once it's across, no, they can't. They wouldn't then just bring access into the site. The county requires them to. They have to have the entrance pulled in, like basically where they have to have that access coming in their main thoroughfare entrance, meaning that they have to pull it all the way down to here.
Does that provide access to people across the street too?
Yes, it would.
But if the roundabout is on track and they're able to pull sewer and water across, could they not go in the back way?
No.
The roundabout construction?
No. That's what I'm. It would be on this side of Newtown, like the side of the development of Newtown, but they would not be able to. Union County does not approve, or will not approve, basically, if they ran that line right there to stub it, where then these properties get access right there. It would come all the way in, and then the actual main tap.
Can you use the cursor?
Yeah.
The
main tap for this development would be right here. They wouldn't be able to come in and have their main tap right here.
And they do that. They do that to promote future expansion of it.
Yeah.
To neighboring properties if they so wish to extend the line themselves.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I see your point. Man, that's got to be expensive.
Very expensive.
Yeah. Well, water's cheap, but sewer's not.
Yeah, that's true.
And even putting in a pump station's not either. But
That's just a lot of acreage they're gonna have to cover.
yeah, I mean that's on the developer, and that's a requirement for the county. So that's if they want to do water and sewer at the site, that's what it is. And the developer is aware of that.
Interesting.
So,
Okay.
it is unclear though. There is this like easement right here.
Yeah, they're showing
Is
water
that a
and sewer
secondary?
there.
Is that
Yeah.
a secondary connection?
So once again, the whole water and sewer, the whole infrastructure thing is not even supposed to be in the sketch plan in mind because
Yeah.
it's like,
My bad.
but the water and sewer there, I think it would run on a full loop. Meaning like, but they have to, from what I was conveyed by the county and even the developers, that they have to run it along Newtown Road for their main access point. Before that, like that's going to be a requirement of the county. So when the county reviews the actual construction plans, that's going to be, I mean, if it's not shown in the construction plans, and that's a revision that the county will require. But on our end, for our review, that's kind of out. I mean, that it's served by water and sewer, and however he gets it there is really not. He just has to meet the requirements of the county since it's their public infrastructure.
It just seems counterproductive to run it all the way down, like physically down as well, because it's a lower, you know, it's at a lower plane, and then to have to then go back up to a pump station. I mean, you almost would need a pump station like near the entrance to get it back up the hill.
Well, like I said, the sewer is going to flow. So the line, the way it would work is that the line would, if it's all brought across, all of it would gravity flow here into the pump station, and then potentially that's
I can't see what you're doing.
Yeah, okay. So,
Well, you know, if you were here, you could see.
yeah, so it all gravity feed into this, and then that's what the pump station, potentially that's what that's for. So the pump station, so actually it would be force main back up to the line to be carried to Mecklenburg. But the actual line for service and all of that would have to be provided along Newtown Road.
Okay, so maybe that's the that easement is the outline then.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry,
Because
it'll make a difference.
anything in these I mean, like I said, most likely all of that's going to feed to the pump station. It's going to be forced through the pump, back up to then gravity feed back down Marvin Road.
Okay.
So,
All right.
So, I know, let me rephrase that. Then I know for a fact they would have to run water along Marvin Road, but the sewer might be slightly different, but it would still, I do know if it's approved, that they are going to have to stub their sewer line out, where then it would provide access for either extension of that line or those property owners to feed in, because basically that public pump station would then become part of Union County and would then feed, like I said, all of that could then gravity feed to that pump station and be pumped out.
Gotcha.
Then we'll officially see it later.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything I want to highlight. Other than
Been very thorough.
yeah, other than basically the lot design. I mean, it's all compliant. Like I said, I've got the plans for it right there, but there's like there are three. There was. Oh yeah, the setback, for lots 24 through 27 and 14 through 16, I requested for them to put the setback line on it, and then that is solely because those are the cul-de-sac lots, I believe. Our ordinance calls for you have the minimum at the frontage is 50 feet, but the minimum lot width's 150 or 130 feet, and the minimum lot width. Basically, the house cannot be, wherever the house, the established building line is, the minimum lot width at that point has to be a minimum of 130 feet. So on these cul-de-sac lots, the frontage is smaller. And so I asked the developer to, in the sketch plan, revisions to please provide showing that all of those lots that I mentioned have that minimum of 130 feet at the build out line.
Gotcha.
So yeah, and then the lots 2, 6, and 7 are the three that are under the 30,000 square feet. Which those are all against the the view shed.
I'm sorry, what lots did you say? 2, 6, and 7?
2, 6, and 7, yeah. So those are the 3 smaller lots in the development, but our ordinance does allow for, like I said, if it's less than 30% to be under that 30,000, but no less than 25,000. So other than that, I mean, do we need a motion to table or just? And over the next month, I mean, if you guys review this and have any specific questions, the developer will be here present during that January meeting. However, if there's any questions specifically you have, feel free to email them to me, and so I can have those prepared and at least relay those to the developer itself, so he can have those prepared as well for the meeting, so we can make it effective, and you guys have your answers and feel comfortable in making a recommendation at that point or so.
With the jurisdictional wetlands, so just nothing is done there. No fences or anything are going to be put up along there.
No, legally we don't have to require with any existing like wetland or even like detention facilities. I know it's a liability, I know it's a safety, but this is, I mean, even the state doesn't require you to fence those in.
Okay.
We actually just had a question about that.
Yeah, we had a question, and that's how I know. Basically, those will be on the responsibility of that HOA. That's actually why that maintenance agreement's needed. Meaning that once the development would be, in theory, completed and all that stuff, then the HOA assumes that liability and responsibility of maintaining that area. And if they choose to put up any type of fencing, they can, but they do not have to. There you go.
Hey, this is slightly off topic, and if we're going to cover it in another session, I can pause, but what happens, is the maintenance agreement also going to cover, because there's a lot of natural area in this plan, is it going to also cover the HOA's responsibility of removing fallen and dead trees, like dead trees?
Should.
I might need a little more clear. Let me try to answer this, and maybe that will okay. When it comes to removing those dead trees and any type of tree removal for the actual development itself, that's part of the construction drawings in the preliminary plat phase, because they have to have a tree removal survey and all that stuff that's reviewed by staff and the engineer. Once the development's completed,
mean like more like post-construction,
yeah.
Like more moving forward. Like we have, like right now we have like along Meadowlark, occasionally one of the trees in that buffer zone will fall like onto our road. So just, like whose responsibility is it to remove those trees, and is there like a time limit of like how fast it needs to be done? Those are just the kind of things that, because it's so close to the road. So I don't know about the along Newtown. I think it's pretty deep. I think there's a pretty decent easement between the actual wooded area and Newtown Road.
Yeah, from a legal standpoint, off the top of my head, if it falls in a right-of-way, whoever is responsible for the right-of-way is typically they're responsible for cleaning it up. As in, if a tree fell off of somebody's property onto the right-of-way, then it's kind of whoever, if it's DOT, the village, or whatever, they'll be the ones that come out and clean it up. With it being private, I have no idea. Actually, in terms of that maintenance agreement, we've had multiple. They're all over the place. Some of them make sense, some of them don't. So I don't really have an answer if that's something that would be covered in that maintenance agreement or not.
Okay, so during the construction phase, when I know that whole, at least the Odell property, they did a tree survey a while back, several years ago. But are they responsible for removing dead trees prior to the completion of construction?
Are you just talking about in that tree preservation area and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
No. They don't legally have to. And this is they identified during their tree preservation part of their construction drawings on what trees are being removed. If a dead tree is either not identified as dead or is dead and not identified for removal, then they don't necessarily have to remove it. That's something, like I said, it's reviewed by staff, engineering, as well as the county urban forester. So it's like I basically I don't have an answer for you until I actually see their further documents.
Okay.
But basically the way our ordinance reads is that, I mean, that being dead itself is grounds for it to having it removed, but I don't think legally they have to unless it's some type of safety concern. But then, like I said, it gets into a whole nother mess.
General clarification for my part, anything that is not a designated lot here, all the other properties, whether it be view sheds or wetlands, those will be HOA property?
Yes.
Okay.
HOA common space.
Yeah.
And typically, and like, just to also clarify, because this came up, because it did go to, this went to PRG as well. And once again, it was the same concept, like, hey, we'll just get this in front of you guys, but we're not going to make any type of formal recommendation until the PIM meeting is scheduled and so on. In that 285-foot view shed stuff, they can clean it up, but I also think the way our ordinance reads, they don't have to necessarily touch it.
It can just stay as is.
It can stay as is and wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, because parks, the PRG board asked for, is there any type of plan of doing any type of maybe greenway or, multi-use path weave it in through there, because we have done that with, other developments. So that's a question I've also asked the developer. But based off our ordinance, I don't think they are necessarily required to. They can do a fee in lieu for that, that recreation space requirement, I think, of our conservation language.
Right. I think we pretty well beat this for something we were just being introduced to.
There's nothing left of this horse.
Yeah.
But
I'm not trying to short anybody.
No.
If anybody's got any other questions or comments.
Yeah. Said as of right now, this is what is being proposed moving forward in regards to what happens potentially with the Heritage District, or if the applicant decides to amend or apply for the Heritage District. It's up in the air because I really don't have a clear answer from them or not.
Yeah.
So we can move forward if everybody.
Question, Austin?
Nope.
Or that was just you were resting
I'm
your
waiting.
finger.
Yep, I'm waiting.
Okay, moving on. Discussion of future text amendments. And I'll go to it.
Okay. With everything we've had going on, Heritage District and me starting.
So we're not busy.
Yeah.
With all that, we're not that busy.
And even going through some of the things that came up tonight with our sign ordinance and other great, lovely things of our ordinance. I want to potentially during our January meeting, do either during our January meeting or look at sometime, scheduling a meeting in either January, February, if it's the regular schedule or some, I don't want to throw off him, doing some type of work session to go through our land use plan, and basically prioritize some of those goals and recommendations that were outlined in that land use plan to direct kind of staff on, hey, this is what we want to, I'm trying to be proactive instead of reactive on this. Like, sure. I want us to be able to, planning board is, provide those recommendations on what you want to see staff go ahead and maybe prioritize on revisions to our ordinance and those can be with those goals and recommendations outlined in our land use plan. There's other things that I think, I've lost the agenda, so I don't even know where it went. I think I mentioned about like our subdivision ordinance. I think, the whole process I think could be clarified. Even once again tonight with the sketch plan and preliminary plat, I think it gets us into a situation of either why does this need to go to the planning board and to council, or what can we maybe do to clean that up, and it's mainly to clean it up for staff, clean it up for the boards and all that other stuff, because it's just not, when I get asked about it from developers, like, hey, what's needed, I give them the ordinance, and like, what does this mean? I'm like, I'm trying to figure it out as well. And even going back through prior approvals, I don't think previous people really knew exactly what was required and not required. There's no kind of generalized standard. I mean, because you read our ordinance and you're like, yeah, I guess that works. So, you know, that's something I want to do and working with, I've already talked to Tom about this, is kind of really trying to clean up and provide recommendations. One, staff providing recommendations for you guys to discuss on, you know, certain revisions to our ordinance, as well as even you guys looking at the land use plan, and if you want to look at our ordinance, good luck. But if you find stuff in there and you're like, hey, this is something that we probably should look at and maybe look at revising. Because I think if we can be proactive and really get some of that stuff accomplished, I think it's going to be a win, you know, win-win for all parties. Especially, you know, the whole land use plan discussion that kind of came up for the Heritage District. Like, that's a plan. You know, there's goals and recommendations in there, but basically, unless somebody takes action and be proactive on that, then that's just sitting there as goals. Yep. So, so that's why I want to probably during the January meeting, as long as we don't have a buttload of applications or anything.
Put that in the minutes.
I want to provide you guys the land use plan, maybe go through and look at, hey, what do we maybe want to focus on for this year?
I mean, the land use plan we just spent 18 months on?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Only 18 months? I thought it was much longer than that.
well, I think that was his intent there, is use that as a starting
That's
point.
right.
Yeah.
To
I thought we were going to look at the land use plan again for 5 years.
Yeah, every time we discuss anything here almost, you say, well, you know, our ordinances need work.
Right.
Mhm.
But
That's being nice about it.
yeah, somewhere we need to start prior. This is the first thing. This is the second
Yeah.
thing. This is, and maybe as you get a new application from Joe Blow, you know, and it's something that we haven't even discussed yet. You know, oh, here's another thing that, you know, it goes on the list somewhere.
For example, we have a variance application for a detached accessory structure to be located in the front yard.
Mm-hmm.
Our ordinance, basically,
It's technically the front yard.
yeah.
Really.
The way our ordinance reads is there's two issues here, and this is why they're applying for variance. One is that it said the way the ordinance reads is no detached accessory structure is allowed to be past the front building line of the house. Basically, that's meaning that it only can go on the side and rear yard, and I completely agree with that. That's fine. The issue is that most ordinances go into greater detail and maybe separate out what certain detached accessory structures. For example, a garage. A garage can be detached accessory garage can be specifically defined as that, and not like a utility building or something like that. Because yeah, you don't want that maybe in the front yard. But if it's a detached garage, most ordinances allow it in the front yard as a special use with the special requirements, and most of those special requirements are that it's in the same looking characteristic of the primary structure, meaning if it was a brick house, it needs to be a brick garage. There's a size limitation, meaning like, I think most that I've read typically don't, in which we already have this kind of an ordinance, but it's not supposed to exceed over like 1,000 square feet or something like that. But it then provides that flexibility, because a garage, if it's looking the same as a house, I don't think should be an issue to maybe, and it still can be front setback requirements and all this other stuff. Then based off of some of the topography in certain ways, certain property lays here in Marvin, then maybe it should be maybe considered if it can meet all those special requirements. But that's one thing where. But
would you be pulling this in from ordinances you've seen, or I mean, do you guys have trade shows you go to and things like that? I mean,
I never
we don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel. Nope. Somebody's already done this and done it well. The question is, how do we find who's done it well?
The way I do any type of text amendment is I search whatever I'm doing and put in North Carolina municipalities. Okay. I pull their zoning ordinances, read what they do, typically pull them all together. I find what I like, try catering it to Marvin, and then, you know, but I typically provide my previous planning boards with all of those ordinances and be like, well, I actually like how this one reads or something like that.
We talk to other towns too.
Yeah,
of course. That's what
and even I'm on a listserv that it's the North Carolina Planners Listserv. Basically, if I ever have a question of like can't find these ordinances online on a simple search, then I send that out. Hey, does anybody have an ordinance for small cell wireless facilities? And typically they'll send them to us. The
So
other
there's
thing,
a planner's.
Yeah. The other thing that I like to do when I do that is pull like-sized municipalities. I don't want to go get some what Charlotte has because that's not going to maybe necessarily fit for Marvin.
Right.
And I like to look at like size and region. So maybe see what Waxhaw and Weddington and all of them are doing, because then I'm able to then dissect all that information. Be like, okay, here's what it says. Here's an ordinance I like. That's maybe Huntersville. I don't know. Some of these are very easy to find and very outlined. Great. But find the language and then bring it to you guys. And a lot of that language that I'll present is maybe, there's the purpose statement and all this other stuff. And then I want to get into the weeds of like, if it's setbacks, if it's, just certain things that are actually the regulatory part of it. And that's where I like the discussion part. Because if we're going to maybe amend something and change it, then some of the stuff in that ordinance is irrelevant. It's just language that's there to maybe define what it is and so on. Let's actually talk about what we're going to regulate.
And this will be good for you guys because you will have your joint meeting with council in, it might be March 1st actually. I think it's actually March 1st. So if you guys have this discussion beforehand, you guys will be ready to go into the joint meeting to explain to council what your goals are for the year. And that kills two birds with one stone. So we don't have to have that separate discussion.
Yeah,
we have a planned approach to this though, instead of just hit and miss, whatever.
You guys can see where our time is going to be spent the best. Which one needs the most time, because
that's going to be a very hard decision.
Well, because I say that because there's a lot of things we'll never touch.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot of things in the ordinance we'll never get around to, but things that you're seeing come up before you and you're like, well, this makes no sense. Those are the ones we should touch.
That was the point I was making was, whenever because every new thing that comes in, you say ordinance needs some help.
Yeah.
So you've seen, and it comes up repetitively. And
and some of this is tying into we're having our ordinance reorganized, not like rewrote. That's a whole other freaking issue.
That's never going to end.
And I don't really want to do anything until I get that version of the reorganized, because apparently because there's sections in our ordinance that are copied and pasted from another section of the ordinance, but it's like, okay, which one? It's awful.
I know what you mean.
And so hopefully, a lot of that's cleaned up. But what I want to do is there's certain things, and I kind of mentioned, like I do want to, my plan is to have probably actually 5G small cell telecommunication zoning to a draft for you guys in January. That's already been working on that, because that's something that came up we didn't have, and we're going to go ahead and get that taken care of.
But again, we really don't have much to say, right?
What do you mean?
Doesn't the Federal Trade kind of come in and say, yeah, here's what we're doing. We're letting you know. We're
large scale towers.
What I'm presenting to you guys is what our legal authority is.
Okay.
But at least it's something on the books, and it's not
kind of giving us a heads up.
Yeah, well, it's where, okay, for example, the small 5G nodes, like we can sort of regulate aesthetic designs and certain things.
Gotcha.
That's better than having
no trees,
having like a white tower compared to, having that, but we might legally, by what the state gives us the authority, not locate where they can and can't go.
I gotcha. I understand that.
And so that's going to be something that's presented to you guys in January. But yeah, I kind of gave some examples here. Our tree ordinance is already being redone with the County Urban Forestry. Once again, that's when you read a whole section and then there's a little sentence at the end that says, oh yeah, by the way, if your lot was created before July 18th of 2007, none of this applies to you.
Well, that's perfect. We're going to have a tree ordinance by the urban, that makes all the sense.
So
we don't need to do that. We're not.
No.
We need to get the opinions from the experts and say, here's what I would do in your town, and then we read those and kind of tweak those. Right?
And that's exactly, that will be some early next year. But the other thing is, I know Kelly mentioned it in, was it the last meeting or 2 meetings ago, like there's goals and recommendations in the land use plan that if it has to do with, like I think she was mentioning like transition density or buffering, like that, then we can look at that and be like, hey, we want to make that a priority on maybe amending our ordinance to meet that goal and recommendation of the land use plan, because that's maybe something that's in the land use plan that I'm not prioritizing, and it's not because I don't think it, but it's just because there's other things going on. But you guys think that is a huge priority, and so that's something that we can come back and revise. So it's kind of, there's a lot of it's kind of a blend of how I want this to work, because there's going to be things that I find that I'm going to bring to you, and I want you guys to also direct me on what you guys maybe want to see.
So if there's anything glaring that we really think that we've seen that we want to,
and
we want to tune up and, you know,
and same thing in that goals and recommendations, prioritize a few things out of that, so we can, you know, like this meeting, yeah, we had some applications, but there might be some meetings where I'm not saying like I'm okay if we're out of here soon and stuff, but it's, you know, it then directs us to make sure like, hey, we're having discussion and we're moving forward and being proactive on some changes.
Totally agree. Good idea.
A program, you know, which we've not had that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the issue, is I think our ordinance has been a lot of reactive, and it's been done reactive to not even make sense.
And that's also partially due to very limited resources.
So,
Being proactive instead of reactive.
yeah, so if you guys, I think if you guys all have access to the land use plan, if not, it's on our website.
It's on our website, right?
If you want to print a copy, let me know. Like I said, just look at some of those goals and recommendations, and if there's one that, I mean, honestly, the way I was potentially going to have you guys all pick 3 of your top 3, and then we'll go from there.
We still need to update the land use plan with the small area plan.
Everything has to be visual for me.
Yeah. So, it's basically like we're doing like a CIP prioritization for our ordinances.
Fun stuff.
So, but yeah, I do want to have some type of goal and outline, and something for us to maybe try achieving, and being proactive and getting things done.
Mm-hmm.
So
good.
Yeah, it sounds like a good plan.
Hunter, does January give you enough time to go through all of the things, all of the ordinances that you know could really use revising and cleaning up for you? I mean, I know there's a lot that needs to be cleaned up, so does that give you enough time? I mean,
I've got an ongoing list.
Yeah, exactly.
Of it, and with some of those that need to be cleaned up and revision, like I said, those are probably just gonna be stuff that I just bring you guys and be like, hey, look, here's what's going on. What I want with like on your end or on planning board's end is, like I said, maybe even finding stuff either like if it's of those goals and recommendations in the land use plan, and saying, hey, this is something that we really maybe want to have staff look into and provide recommended, because some could be adopting a whole new like ordinance regulation in itself. Like, I know this doesn't say this, but if our ordinance said, hey, establish another residential zoning, something, I don't know, like, then that's maybe, if that was a priority, then that's something that would then be established. So, so January, like I said, it gives me enough time to, I can do a general outline of what I think needs priority, but I still want to have your guys' priority from the land use plan as well, because some of it can coexist. Because if we're going to maybe amend our landscape and buffering section, well, there could be something that was in the land use plan that was a goal and recommendation, so why not kill 2 birds with 1 stone if we're going to maybe revise that whole chapter. So that's what I'm kind of looking at.
That's good idea.
Yep. Got to start somewhere.
Yep, that's a good idea.
And like I said, instead of reacting,
Yeah.
start.
Yeah, I'm hoping throughout the next year we can get the ordinances cleaned up, amended, and like I said, it's not to amend them to change the like when I say the actual regulations, if it's setback, what all that stuff, it's to make it clear to understand and follow.
Readable,
not contradicting.
We can understand them. How can we expect everybody else to understand?
You have a lot of confidence in us. You think we're going to do it in a year?
Well,
no, it's ongoing.
This will
keep us busy for years on end, John.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I want to maybe do it at like chapters / subsections at a time.
Yeah.
So
instead of just bouncing.
Yeah. That's why that's like landscape, like that's one section of our ordinance that covers a lot. There's multiple things in that I want to clean up, but yeah, I mean, I think we basically kind of do a full kind of chapter / section revision at a time. And those are the, you know, if it's the sign, landscape buffering, if it's subdivision process, whatever, we'll get it hashed out.
All right.
That's all I got.
and will your planning, will your part-time planner, will he still be on board to help with the language?
Tom's contract runs out through July.
Okay.
But you know, we're going to be utilizing him as much as we can. But like I said, this is nothing new for me. I mean, it's I'm going to present to you guys, but I mean, that's how we on it. That's all planners are going to say the same thing. We're not going to reinvent the wheel, and we're going to follow their ordinances. And so, you know, it's not necessary that he'll be needed. If I hit a stump, then, you know, there's resources out there to try finding recommendations for you guys.
Action items.
There we go. Hunter will inform our other staff members that they need a better package for that sign. And he will prepare you all for future text amendment discussions, as we thoroughly just heard.
What about training on new stuff?
I'll take care of that. You
Like,
guys,
contact us individually. Or?
I'm going to schedule a Microsoft Teams call with you all probably in the next couple weeks. It'll be before the next meeting. It's a very simple software. I'm going to show you how to log on, how to access your packet. There's an iPad app that'll be available to you all.
You're getting us iPads? Nice.
No, you're not getting an iPad. That's just counsel and stuff.
Merry Christmas.
You can use it on your phone though.
No, you can't. That app's an iPad app, not an iPhone app.
I'm pretty sure I've used it.
It's not an
It's like
iPhone
we have
app.
to
It doesn't
log
work.
in council for iPad.
But you'll. But anyway, it won't take long for me to show you all how to do it. It'll probably take us 20
is this
minutes
gonna
of
be ready
that.
for next meeting or no?
Yes.
Oh, it is.
This is the last meeting outside of the software.
Perfect. Yeah.
So we are moving into the 21st century.
Moving into a new building, new software, new everything.
Damn time, we're just gonna be more productive than ever.
What do you think, the February meeting for us or January?
What?
In the new building?
I would. It's not going to be January.
February. Oh, maybe March.
We are hoping for February. We're
That's
scheduled
all?
for furniture in
That's
February.
Oh, really? Wow.
But you know how things go.
No,
We'll see.
you gotta have
They
something.
have they have the signage on the building if you drove by it today.
I've never
meet
passed
there.
this building.
Hey, and they've
We will
even
be there
painted the
before they
entire
finish
building.
around.
They've even
Okay.
painted.
They have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The inside-
about
Before
I'm talking
the
about the
roundabout.
outside.
Yeah, outside's painted. The outside's painted. The sign's up. They've closed up all the walls inside. They haven't done flooring yet. I think they're working on fixtures right now.
Has anybody been through?
I went through last
It's
week.
impressive. It's nicer than
Yeah.
I mean, it's nicer than I thought. Put it that way. That's a good way
Yeah.
to compliment it.
We're gonna be comfy.
Heck yeah, it's gonna be. We're gonna feel big shots.
All right,
Comments?
comments. Kelly, you're first on the picture.
No comments other than, whatever you celebrate, I hope you have a great one, and, that's it. Stay safe.
All right, moving over.
I'll go ahead.
Yeah, I'm
I
sorry. I'm
wish
just,
everybody
Yeah, I'm
the
just-
best
yeah,
this season
duh.
has to offer, so please, everybody be safe and enjoy the time with your family. And staff, thank you very much for all the work and preparation for what you do for us.
Ken? Any comment?
I agree completely.
What'd he say?
I agree completely with what Richard said. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Melinda?
No, I got nothing.
Merry Christmas to those who celebrate Christmas, and be safe and have a happy New Year, everyone.
I agree with everybody, you know, it's been a very productive year, I think. And so, and hopefully next year will be even better, since we'll have elbow room then.
I know it's going to
Very much to God's ears.
All right, Mr. Marklees, any comment?
Well, I apologize for joining late. I did look at the packet, and so any questions I have, I'll ask Hunter. But, you know, all my sentiments the same way. Merry Christmas to everybody, and a Happy New Year. We're going to have an exciting New Year.
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn
At 7:36.
at 7:36.
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
You need a second.
I'll second Kelly. Kelly said
Okay.
it. I'll second her.
All right, so we're adjourned at 7:36.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everybody.
I will clarify, this is not